Hi, happy Thursday. Holy moly. I'm going to do the briefest intro possible because I could not be more excited to share this upcoming interview with you. I was fortunate enough to chat with my Decision Masters client, Kirsten Parker. No, we do not ever get tired of how delightful that is. She is not only a brilliant coach herself and an executive communication expert, she's also a joy of a human. You are going to love listening to her and feeling like you are chatting with her too. So in this conversation, she talks about how she stopped overthinking the decision to start her own business and leave her job of 22 years. She talks about the biggest helpful change she experienced through the Decision Masters program, which had all to do with changing the habit of getting stuck in other people's opinions. She talks about what making a clean decision feels like, intrigue, and she shares a really personal story when we get into a conversation about embracing the many surprises of life and how it's such a gift to yourself to be able to not judge them and yourself so harshly. So it is my pleasure to introduce Kirsten J. Parker. Enjoy our conversation. First, let's just welcome you to the Decision Masters podcast. Hi.
I am so happy to be here. I was so thrilled to be invited. Thank you so much for having me.
And I think it's really appropriate that the first interview is actually with just Kirsten Parker.
I'm the first interview? Oh, now it really feels special.
I mean, and you sent me a list. I was like, what do you want to talk about? And you sent me a 12 bullet point list. So we'll get into it. But I would love for you to share, because I think it's funny and I think it's a fun way to get to know you and who you are. Can you share how we met, how we found each other?
Yes, how we found each other. Because I'm a Kirsten Parker too. So, and this was probably about a year ago now. I was planning on launching my business and setting up my website and looking for a URL that was going to work. And so I looked up kirstenparker.com, obviously, because it's my name. And turns out it's also your name. And so kirstenparker.com came up and I'm scrolling through your website and I was like, oh, this is interesting. You know, she kind of does what I'm planning on doing and she's got a great site. And I'm scrolling down and it's like decision making for overthinkers. And here I've spent probably the last, I don't even know how long, trying to decide what's my URL among 1,000 other decisions. Like, am I going to leave my corporate job? Am I going to start this business? Am I going to do it full-time or part-time? How is the business going to work? And on and on and on. What's my office setup going to look like? What do I need for childcare? I mean, there's a million decisions. And so that's all buzzing through my head. I'm scrolling through your site and it's like, you know, would you like to make decisions more efficiently? Would you like to? And I was like, uh-oh. This is for me. And so it was doubly helpful because not only did I get an example of a great website, I also got to meet you and join your Decision Masters program, which was so amazing. And which really, I really credit you with helping me launch my business and make all the millions of decisions that it takes to launch a business in an efficient way, in an effective way, in a feel-good way. Not a yucky feel way. And so I'm so grateful that we met. And so I sent you an email and I think you thought you were hacked because
for sure,
all the warning bells go off, right? In the email systems. It did for me too, because it's like, this looks suspicious. And we met and I had the most amazing conversation with you, the most helpful coaching conversation for an hour that, that I had maybe ever. And yeah, I mean, I was just so thrilled to join the program. It was a no-brainer. And then the program was amazing too. We can talk more about that. I know. Oh,
yes, we will.
Your podcast viewers can't see the confetti, but maybe they can imagine the actual colorful confetti that you're throwing.
I know. I throw it for myself all the time.
It's working.
I brought it. I brought it to our conversation. I think that thank you for sharing your story. And I will take credit for helping you hear yourself more clearly in hearing how important your business was. But I would love to hear more about that because I think that something that I hear a lot from people is kind of in like wonderment, is like
Mm,
you just do things so quickly. You just like don't
yes.
seem to think about it. And they're kind of baffled. Like, is everything in your life on fire? What's happening? But
And you're like,
the more
yes,
I
everything
work
in my
with
life is on
people,
fire.
oh my gosh, yes, that should be my answer. But the more I work with people who are into this idea of making efficient decisions that are not rushed, rash, dangerous, irresponsible decisions, the more I'm like, no, no, this is a normal way people can live. And I think that you're such a huge example of that because you came into the program and then I should look it up, but within, I don't know, a few weeks,
A
you
few weeks.
dropped this celebration in Slack. We're like, okay, so I gave my notice at my job I've been at for 20 years,
22 years.
22 years.
22 years. It's my only job, right? I mean,
Ah,
that was my first job out of college.
so what did you need to be able to click in your mind like, yes, this is the safe, right thing to do right now. I don't need to think about it for 6 more months or 6 more years. What needed to happen in your mind?
Right. Super good question. I think what you said about being able to hear myself more clearly was so critical, was so important. And what that means to me is not just, write down my priorities and goals and this is what I want, but hear what I want in my heart more clearly.
Mm,
Um, and it takes some practice to be able to do that and some tools because the outside voices are very loud. There's a lot of people outside of me who have opinions and preferences and would be highly inconvenienced by this impending decision. And I felt very paralyzed by that. How am I going to take into
mm.
account all of those different people's opinions and preferences and inconveniences and people I care about? Right? Aren't just like random people on the internet, right? This is my
Yeah.
family, my partner, my work colleagues that I've worked with for a very long time. And I had this kind of sense of responsibility toward everybody else, but I didn't have that sense of responsibility toward myself and my purpose and my life and kind of what my whole point of being in this human body, as I think you would say, in this human body, in my particular body, my particular version of Kirsten Parker, and what I can bring to the world. And so I think I needed to really marinate in that, but not get stuck there. I think in the past
Mm.
I'd been sort of recognizing it, but not being able to move forward because I was so stuck in other people's problems, other people's
Yeah.
ideas, other people's judgments. And I think that was the biggest helpful change, I think, through the program.
Yeah. So you really had to be honest with yourself, which is not the funnest thing too. Like that's kind of why this is a process and not just a one and done event, right? Because it's not the
Right.
funnest thing to realize like, oh, this is how I've been living for a little bit.
Oh,
This is
yeah,
how I've been.
that's painful
It's
to
not
realize.
fun
No.
sometimes.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you had to be able to be honest with yourself, and then you had to kind of have that moment where you were like, okay, who's most important in my life? Like all these people
Right.
get to be important, and who's going to make me important?
Well, and I think the idea that making myself important, my priorities important, gives everybody else kind of that right to do the same thing. And
Yes.
inspires people really to do that. And I think that, I'm not the only person who gets stuck that way. We all do. We all care about the people we care about and want them to be happy and want them to be, want them to respect our decisions, think we're making good decisions, think that we're responsible, especially me because I'm an Enneagram 1. So I really
Yeah.
want that. That's really important to me.
Yeah.
But I think I was being a little bit irresponsible with my own needs and my own vision. And by shifting the focus a little bit, not a ton, right? But just shifting it a little bit, I think made those decisions so much easier. And then made trusting those decisions easier. Because it's not, like you said, it's not just one decision. It's one decision and then seeing it through and sticking it out and being confident through that change and on to the next decision and the next decision.
Yes. Yes. So much gold. Because it's like you said, it's not a huge 180. I think that's a big misunderstanding when people know about themselves like, "Oh, I've been prioritizing other people's opinions, or I've given other people's voices more space in my head than my own maybe." When they
Yep.
know that about themselves, they think, "Okay, in order to make decisions for me, I have to totally stop caring about what other people think." And you're clearing that up for us. Like, no, not true. You can still care. You
Right.
just have to like
Right.
include yourself in whose opinion you're caring about.
Well, and I think about the level of caring, right? So it's, is it a mild inconvenience to your partner or to your coworkers if you're going to decide to do something or decide not to do something? Is that a mild
Mhm.
inconvenience for them, but a huge step forward for you? Then maybe the huge step forward is what's most important this time. And,
Yeah.
you know, if it were me looking outside at someone else, I would say, oh, go for it. This is amazing. This is a huge opportunity. Take it. Yes, it's a little bit inconvenient for me. I'll figure it out. I can do my own thing over here. But I think that, the idea that I would so encourage someone else to do it, but then not take that lead myself, I think was a, interesting comparison.
Yes. That's another misunderstanding, right? It's like the end of the world if someone else feels anything like a negative emotion. And you're like, well, wait a minute. It might actually just be okay if somebody
Right.
has
And
a
they might not
feeling.
even be feeling that.
Yeah. And
That
it
might
might not
be
last forever.
up here, that it might be, I might be projecting that feeling on them. And it might be kind of like convenient for me to stay stuck in the same place because I'm getting some weird benefit out of it. But that's such an unhealthy cycle.
Yeah. And the universe kind of gave you interesting opportunities to kind of work your decision trust muscles after this choice because you did get positive feedback from
Yes.
colleagues.
That was so surprised. I was so surprised. I
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be the end. I thought it was going to be the end of my relationship with that company, with those people. And it just hasn't been. I think friendships remain, and that's like obvious,
Mm,
so obvious now. But I think at the time I thought there was more at stake than there was. And people were so excited and happy for me and
yeah.
inspired. I can't tell you how many people said, and I think when you and I spoke, one of the things that we talked about as one of my goals was to be able to tell my story to inspire other people. Um, and I think by making decisions that felt true to me, that, and then telling people about it, that in and of itself inspired people. So it was almost like this confetti. It was almost like this cycle of positive reinforcement that was impossible to deny because, and people, they would actually use those actual words. They'd be like, oh, Kirsten, you're so inspiring. And I'd be like, wow, that's what it says here on my thing I wrote down. Like I'd look at my little clipboard up here and, tell my story to inspire others.
Yes.
So
And
it's
you know
very
me,
exciting.
I'm gonna ask you how can you take full responsibility for that? How can you take full credit for them being excited for you?
Well, I set that intention and I entered
Yes.
every conversation with that emotion. And I think
Inviting them
having
in.
that right. And this is where we bridge into like that communication space is if you go into a meeting or a conversation and your energy level's exactly where you want that conversation to go, it is
Yeah.
inevitable that that's where it's going to go. And you know what? If it's in a different place, it's inevitable that's where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And so setting that intention, and for me, I think I was truly inside just so passionate and excited about it. It was easy to do that. It's not always easy to do that.
Yeah.
That it was, like I said, inevitable.
Yeah. Yes. So you kind of balanced, I mean, all of your superpowers, right? Because you set the intention, like, I'm going to invite people to be excited about my choice instead of inviting
Yes.
them to do what you didn't want them to do, right? Like approaching a
Right.
conversation like, I'm so sorry, but I have terrible news.
Yeah.
Please commence the judgment. Cause like, whoof, I'm with
Yes,
you.
exactly.
I'm
Or
judging you too.
like just kind of gathering a perpetual, never ending feedback. Like, I'm thinking about doing this. What do what do you guys think? Or what do it's just that's coming from such a place of like, um, now when I hear myself say that, the words that come to mind are broken weakness. But it's kind of like checking and checking and checking and checking in and checking in and checking in. And that can be exasperating to other people too, right? They're
Yeah.
like, oh, God, just make a decision already. So
Yeah.
I coming in with that intention, setting it ahead of time, bringing that energy into the conversation, totally changed the virtual room, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's super powerful.
Yeah. And you got to clear up those lines of communication with yourself. Cause I think I used to be the exact same way. I would tell everybody. Well, first I would complain. Back in my
Yes.
stage management days,
Yeah.
I would just complain, but with no intention to actually, like, solve any
Right.
problems.
I mean, that's one approach. That's one approach.
And then when I actually made my decision to start this business, I f I f was did not have my mindset dialed in yet. I was not a decision coach from the get-go. And I did watch myself run every single idea and question, like, through other people. It was like it didn't even have a
Hmm.
second to land in my head where it was like before I was, like, asking for everybody's feedback,
Yes. I used
which
to, I used
doesn't give you a chance to talk to yourself and hear yourself clearly. Sorry,
right.
go ahead.
No, I'm totally in agreement with you. I used to tell people that I was a talk it out person. And I used to fundamentally
Yeah.
believe in my heart I was a talk it out person. Like, I don't even know what I think until I talk to you about it. I don't even know what I think until it comes out of my mouth. I don't know what I think until I talk about or
Yeah.
how I feel about it until I talk about it. And now I can say I do know how I feel. I do know what I think. And I can just decide and go. I don't need to run it by everybody else first.
That's
And that
so
also is
interesting.
it also builds like I think past Kirsten thought it built respect and trust to check in constantly.
Mhm.
Future Kirsten, now Kirsten, knows that it builds respect and trust to know yourself, know that you make good decisions, really kind of check in with yourself, and then make a decision. And then people trust you already. That's the baseline. That's table stakes. So
Yes.
it's just been life changing.
I
Transformational.
think
That's the
that's
word.
I love it, transformational. It's like and it's not you don't even transform into a different person, right? It's just evolving into the
Mhm.
next version of yourself who you're having a little bit more of a say in shaping. But
Yes,
that's
I
like
think,
the go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of going deeper inside yourself and what you want and making that a reality.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about the vision, and I love that you bring this up that you thought of yourself as like a talk it out person. I think
Right.
I love deciding ooh, cup twinsies,
I know we both have our mugs.
decision masters. I love helping people not only hear themselves about what they're thinking and feeling and wanting, but also like how are you defining yourself? And that can feel like we don't have a say. It's like I am a talk it out person. This is how I am. This is how I've always been.
Right.
And when we bring in that vision piece where we're like, okay, maybe this is true, that this has been true for the last however many decades. And like, do you want to be a talk it out person? And then did you
Yeah,
know you have a say
is
in
that
that?
efficient anymore? Is that actually I think we all have really full lives. Like it's very
Yeah.
inefficient to be a
Do we
talk it
have
out
time for
person.
this?
Like I need to have like drinks and dinner with my three best friends so I can talk it out, every Thursday. Like that's fun too, but that's not a good way to make decisions in an efficient way. It's not an efficient way to make decisions. It might be a fun
And
way,
not
but
ones that you can totally trust, right? Because when you
no.
know where a decision came from, you can trust it if it came
Mhm.
from an intentional place. But if you know that decision came from like somebody else's idea and then your agreement with that because you wanted that person to like you or whatever I'm simplifying here, but
Right.
you make that decision, all of a sudden you go to implement it and you're like, wait, why are we doing this? Is this right? I should probably go back and spend another week just remaking it.
Right. I think the other kind of pitfall of relying too much on other people's opinions um, is that if you need to change your decision or change something, then you're like, ooh, now I got to go back and kind of check with that person, or maybe that person, you're like they're like weirdly ingrained in your thing, whatever the thing
Yeah.
is. Whereas if you made the decision, you can change your mind and decide something else because now you have new information. And it's you're not
Yes.
weirdly wrapped up in someone else's kind of stake in your decision.
Yeah. One of my clients coined the phrase decision autonomy. And I was like,
Oh, I
yes,
love
that's what we're
that.
doing.
Decision autonomy.
Yeah,
Whew, that's
that's what we're
powerful.
doing. So this is related a little bit to what we were just talking about too, but you said something that was top of mind was that why it's so important to define your vision goal values today rather than what they should be or should have been in
Mm,
the past and then
yes.
revisiting them regularly. What a
Oh, so
gift
good.
and a relief to have both flexibility and a shorter time frame to set and achieve goals. Tell us everything.
Okay, okay. So this is huge because I think for me, right, and I think for people who've maybe been on the same path, whether it's in their career or in their relationships or in their kind of family of origin for their whole life, many years,
Mhm.
you do set those goals early on. Like you're going to graduate from high school, you're going to go to college, you're going to get married, you're going to get this job, and you're going to X, Y, Z.
Mhm.
And the reality is, by the way, especially post COVID, the reality is life happens and things
Mm.
change and you change as a result. And because you change, it is totally acceptable to have different goals and different values. And like, not just acceptable, but normal.
Yes.
And it would be weird if you didn't.
Yes.
That would be really weird if you like still had exactly the same values and motivations as you did when you were 20. I mean, think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Let's think about what our values were at age
That's not what we're
22.
going for.
Yeah, no. And so it's different now, and it's good that it's different. And that means you have to kind of frame it differently and not feel like you're still tied in to that idea of success that you had at age 22.
Mm.
And that's where I was. I was still tied into that. And it was so
Yeah.
freeing to say, yes, that's what I wanted then, and that was okay. And now, here's what I want now, and this is okay. And in the future, there's going to be something else that I want, and that's
Mm.
okay too.
Yes. And the nerves that can come up when you're not tapped into that freedom. There's so
Yes.
many nerves about, but I've spent so much money on this goal, or I've
Mhm.
invested so much time in
Yes.
whatever, this life plan, this value. And so what are your thoughts on that? Did that ever come up for you, or was it more like
Definitely.
you just tapped
Definitely.
into tell me?
And here's what happened. Here's what really, really helped me with that. And you presented this tool, and I know you're going to know what it's called, and maybe you can share it in the notes on this
Okay.
podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh. But where you're going to be able to explain this better than I can. But really, the forgiving yourself for believing in a myth that you thought was true, that you believed to be true, but not forgiving yourself for the things you did because those were logical, normal, healthy things to do with whatever it was you believed or felt at the time. And releasing yourself from that previous understanding or expectation, understanding that kind of that buy-in you had to that expectation was probably normal and healthy at the time, and being able to move forward with this sort of idea that, well, the truth is this belief was inaccurate. The truth is, I
Mm.
actually did learn so much during that time. The truth is, that investment paid off in so many unexpected ways to bring me to where I am today,
Yeah.
even though, and maybe even because of the things that didn't happen that I thought were going to be the payoff,
Yeah.
or the way I thought I was going to feel when I accomplished this goal.
Yeah.
That might not
Yeah.
have been the best part of it. Like the best part of it, the
Mm.
growth and the learning and the relationships, the friendships that you maybe built over time, those are that's really the juicy stuff. And you get to keep that.
Yes. Oh my God. So good. Yes. The tool you're talking about, I mean, you explained it beautifully, so I don't need to add anything. Compassionate self forgiveness. It's a
Oh,
tool, it's a concept,
compassionate self.
whatever, developed by, if I get their names wrong, I'll edit it out, but developed by doctors Ron and Mary Hulnick, who run this or ran, I don't know if they still do, but the spiritual psychology program at University of Santa Monica, I think, where I did not attend, but one of my teachers did. So, and it's super simple. It's not if you explained it beautifully, because it's like, let's recognize what was happening. We were believing things. We were believing that chocolate milk came from brown cows. It's like,
Right.
that's what we thought was true at the time.
We did. We thought that.
And then let's tell ourselves the truth today. And when you can let go of this misunderstanding that the only good thing that can happen after you make a decision is everything happens the way that you think it should,
Yes,
then you're
exactly.
set. Because
Yeah.
then you don't have only one way to grade, well, how well did this decision turn out?
Yeah. You're not locked into an outcome.
Yeah, because then we can plan on surprises and failures and feelings happening, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, great, I got new information. And how boring would life be if everything went the way we thought it should,
Right.
right?
And a lot of those, I mean, you talk about surprises, failures, and feelings. A lot of those surprises are good surprises.
Yeah.
They're not bad surprise. Not, I
They're
mean,
not good to our
there's
nervous
some
system.
surprises, but they're
It's
like,
like, ooh,
might be good surprises. Like, oh, I could have never imagined that
right,
this happening in my life would result in this happening in my life.
right. And it's not either or. It's not like, did this decision turn out well or poorly? Did this, like,
Mm-hmm.
this the goal I went after in my 20s, like, how did it end up, good or bad? It's like, that's not really the most useful metric because life is ongoing. And
Right.
there's good surprises, like good feeling surprises, bad feeling surprises that turn into good consequences. Like, I think that we're
Absolutely.
good students. Like, we like grading stuff.
I love a gold star more than just about anything. But I think
But
find
now
your
you
gold
have an endless
star, right?
supply.
Find your gold star.
Right,
Because
exactly. You
they're
have an
everywhere.
endless
They're
supply.
everywhere. I think and just to kind of to share a really personal story about how this makes sense for me now, if that's all right with you.
Of course, if it's
Um
all right with you.
yeah. I mean, just a couple of Kirstens here, right? Talking.
It's my favorite
um
thing.
so when I think about the company I worked for 22 years, it's where I met my first husband. And we met within the first 6 months that I worked there. And it was one of those like electric meetings. I knew I needed to get to
Mm,
know him. There was like I just knew there was something there. Um, and we got married. And 2 years later, he was diagnosed with ALS. Um, and we went through a very long journey. He lived with ALS for 8.5 years. We had two daughters, and it was just kind of this incredible um, time in my life and in our life and our relationship that was really difficult and fraught, obviously. And after he passed away, my daughters were 4 and 7 at the time. And, I think about like, you know, another gold star for working at that company, right? That's where I met my husband. Now I
mm.
have these two beautiful girls, right? That wouldn't have happened. That's an amazing gift from this company, whether or not I made partner, right? Like totally
Right.
separate from that. Um, then this terrible thing happens, right? I lose him to this vicious disease. I mean, a horrible disease, totally debilitating. Then now, almost 10 years later, I've remarried and I have this little guy who's 4, right? So I had another baby with my new partner. And the girls and I talk about this, that, losing their dad was so awful. And at the same time, now they have a little brother.
Mm,
And those two things couldn't have, they had to happen. They had to both happen. And so even things that seem like, such a terrible um, thing in your life, I guess, experience in your life, it's so hard to judge it in the moment.
yeah.
And I think there's so much good in life long term. And there's so much hope. And there's so much resilience in like the universe and the world that you can trust that it's not going to be an internal downward spiral. Like
Yeah.
there are gold stars to be claimed. And so,
Yeah.
if I think about working for this company, deciding to leave, part of my loss there was the loss of this, maybe another loss, another final loss of where my husband and I met.
Mm,
And
mm,
that, I think, recognizing that emotion and being able to process that emotion during that time in the Decision Masters program was also really pivotal and important. And I don't want to underestimate the importance of kind of those underlying emotions and how important it is to like be there and
yeah.
and feel those things in your body
Yeah.
so that you can move through them and so you can really make those clean decisions. Um, and now I feel lighter. I feel more joy. I feel like I can, a little bit have a glimpse of like the parts and pieces of my life coming together. And then the decisions I get to make, right? The choices I get to make going
Yeah.
forward. And I'm so grateful.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. There are gold stars everywhere to be found. And I
There
think that
are.
I think you can miss out when you don't, when we're operating at this like hypersensitive nervous system level of like, I can't get anything wrong. I can't
Yes.
disappoint anyone. I can't inconvenience anyone. We're only reacting real time in the moment. Like you said, we're judging things based on this surface. It's almost like walking around anxious all the time. And we miss out on what else is there to process here.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
sure, this person's face.
that
Yeah.
anxiety is a coping mechanism. It's like a
Yeah.
repellent. Like I'm
Yes.
gonna have
Like,
keep my anxiety out here, um, in my like nice shield boundary of anxiety, so that I don't have to go deep. But wow, you make so much progress when you go deep.
yeah. With yourself, right? That's literally, we're going to be gone in a split second if we zoom out long enough on the timeline, right? And
Yeah,
like, what a gift to be able to know yourself and experience life on this like deeply connected level just because that's available to you.
right. And it's only available to you in your life, right? It's like you have your own unique life to live. I have my own unique life to live, and we all do.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself is a life lesson. And I think embracing that, being able to kind of tell your story in a way that you know not only makes sense to you, but also can help other people kind of figure out where they're at and find their own stories, I think is so important.
Yes. Like, that's what I want when people come to me and they're like, I'm nervous that I'm being selfish. I'm like, I'm just going to have them listen to that clip from you. Because that's the kind of selfish we're after.
We
Like,
should
this
do
is
a
my one and
sleep
only life.
story. Wouldn't that be fun? Like to do like
Ooh.
with people like a calm app sleep story, just to put people to
Yes.
sleep. There are gold stars everywhere.
Okay, I'll get my script people to start working on.
Reach for those gold stars.
Okay, one last question because you mentioned something super interesting that I want you to expand on if you're open to it. Clean decisions.
Ooh, yes.
What's that? What's you mentioned like you
Clean
get to make clean
decisions. So I
decisions. What's that
feel like
about?
decisions in the past for me were really muddy. They're very
Mm,
muddy, gloppy, gloopy, and I never felt like they were over. I never felt like
yeah.
they were right and over. And now being able to make these clean decisions, so I know These are my values. This is where I'm headed. This is what I want. I can handle other people's opinions or mild inconveniences in a way that's sensitive and thoughtful. It makes it very easy to say, I am going to decide to get LASIK. I am going to decide to rearrange my office. I am going to decide to book this hotel and take a vacation. I think those decisions, or sign my kid up for soccer, or whatever it is, or start, pitching my business in this very specific way, or
Yeah.
targeting this very specific type of customer. I mean, I think whether it's a business decision or a personal decision or an environmental decision, whatever it might be, it's very clean and easy. And it's also very clean and easy to change your mind and decide to do something else and see the results,
Yeah.
gather
You
information,
make it sound
make a
really
new
easy.
decision. Well,
Yeah,
you make it really easy. So
I love it.
I will hold up my coffee mug and say it's because I'm a decision master. There you go.
Bitches. Um, this has been so much fun. I could listen. I feel like I need to have you on like 4 more times so that we can get like all of your wisdom nuggets, all of
I'm
the
in.
gold stars.
Let's do it.
I have 3 questions, and then I want you to tell people like how can they find you and hire you and what's your business about.
Oh, lovely.
So, what would you say to someone, because the Decision Masters program is not for everyone. Coaching's not for everyone. So what would you say to someone who's considering it, who's like, I think I might be an overthinker. I don't know. I don't know what I want.
So, what would I say to someone who's overthinking the decision to join an overthinking club? Is that what you're asking
Well,
me?
when you put it
Um,
that way.
yes, and that's how it felt to me. And I would say that's not how it felt when I joined. I
Yeah.
thought it was. I felt like, okay, I'm going to get these tools. I'm going to be able to apply these tools and move forward, make good decisions, which happened, yes. But the magic was those group sessions where
Mm,
you would coach and I would hear you coach someone else about a decision challenge they were having. And I would hear exactly what I needed to hear in that moment for the thing in my life. And that's a secret
mm.
magic sauce that you can't get anywhere else. So it's not just the one on one coaching, it's not just the tools, but it's that group. And I loved our group. It was so
You did love our
diverse and
group.
interesting. And, you know, meeting these people who are at all different stages in their life, all
Yeah.
different types of careers, all different backgrounds from really everywhere. That was so, it was, but all struggling with the same thing. It's so powerful. And it's so powerful to go through that experience with others. I think
Mm.
it really magnifies the ability for you to make progress. And
Yeah.
so I think I think that was a huge benefit that I didn't realize before joining the program.
Yum.
So, if you're a person who's considering meeting with Kirsten, spend that time. Like take an hour, meet with Kirsten, talk to her about I think when I joined the first call, you're like, tell me everything. And it's true. I mean, it just that coaching really helped, right? It helped me see who I am and maybe some of the kind of practical pitfalls I was having in the past and how I might move forward. And it's been life changing.
Mm. Ready for that. And I love that you left the group because that
I did
that
love the
is the
group.
magic. Like being able to be outside of your own head and then see the exchange and hear the words you need to hear. You're like, "Oh, yep, that's I'm
Yeah,
going to
it
take whatever applies
depersonalizes
to
it
me."
a little bit, right? Um, and also, it gave me things to talk about with you one on one. Because I would say,
Yeah.
I heard you talk about this, or I heard you coach so and so on this. I'm really struggling with that too. Here's my unique scenario, and how can we use that same framework to help with this? And so I found that to be so helpful.
Wonderful. Okay, what I did not prep you on these, so no pressure,
No,
no
no,
pressure.
I'm
But
curious what the next question is.
what kind of decision maker would you say you are today?
Calm, confident, enlightened,
Oh,
clean. Confetti.
And what is the most self-honoring decision you've made in the last week that you want to share with us?
Ooh, in the last week. Interesting. Okay. We are going on a family vacation to California, by the way. So we need to talk about that
Fun.
next week. And the self honoring decision I made is not to book more than I've already booked because we've got some plans. I have a list of about 700 different activities that sound amazing, but I've decided we're going to kind of go with a few things we've had planned, make it a more relaxed vacation, spend a lot of time at the pool, and see where things go. So let it be more fluid. And I feel so good about that. And I feel like that's the right decision for me right now. Other trips might be like back to back to back to back. I know what's happening in every moment. This trip right now, I think for me and for my family, the people I love, we just need that downtime.
Yeah.
So self-honoring.
That's decision autonomy too. It's like, I know what I'm deciding. Look at me make a choice with my eyes open.
Yeah. And I didn't consult everyone, because I have a lot of opinions at my house.
Yeah.
I just decided, like, we're done. We're done planning the vacation. We get on the plane.
So good. Okay, tell everyone what's your business that you started?
Yes.
How can they find you? Who should hire you? Tell us everything.
Tell us everything. All right. Well, I work with high-performing senior executives who feel a little nervous or aren't getting their point across or aren't getting their ideas heard and need some help really just cleaning up their communication skills. So their presentation skills, how they speak, how they write, and how they come across, improving their executive presence so that they can get to that next level and really achieve that leadership panache, credibility, and cachet that they know they have inside and they know they need to get to the next level, but just need a little bit of help, right? A little bit of coaching to get there. So that's who I work with. I've worked with more than 50 executives over the last 10 years doing this exact work. And my clients are really, really excelling. I'm so proud of all the results they're achieving. And so to me, that's what I love. And when I think about my purpose and the decisions I make, it's from a place of, I love to be that behind the scenes person who helps somebody else shine. So this is like the perfect combination of what I do, what I can help other people do. And you can find me at KirstenJParker.com and on LinkedIn.
KJP in the house.
That's right. Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Hey, did you love this episode? Well, guess what? The Decision Masters program is enrolling right now. If you're ready to trust every decision you make and stop living in overthinking agony, you will want to check this out. Get all the details at KirstenParker.com/DMP. That's KirstenParker.com/DMP. I will see you in the Decision Masters program.